On Indianapolis this week, pay raise questions. The plan to give Mayor-elect Joe Hogsett a $30,000 raise and boost council salaries. The details behind the push. Plus, the new business group joining the fight over Indiana's civil rights law and changing the rules for the classroom. What you need to know about the new federal education bill.
From RTV6, the Indy Channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week, a very busy Sunday, starting with a plan to boost salaries for the mayor of Indianapolis and members of the City County Council. The plan calls for boosting the mayor's salary by $30,000 per year to $125,000. It would also boost council salaries starting January the 1st. The mayor's salary has not increased in 13 years, and supporters say it is necessary to attract top talent to the positions.
You've got to pay people a decent salary, and I think you're all aware of that. And I'm not excluding city and county employees. I think that our new council will need to look at that. But I truly believe that dealing with the mayor and the council, that this is long overdue.
The timing always gets interesting. You know, the question is, should the outgoing council and mayor be doing it? Should we wait until the new mayor and council are in? Should we wait till the budget cycle to discuss it?
Obviously, I did not run for this position because I was concerned about the salary. So I'll defer to the judgment of the leadership that's currently in power.
Joining us now, two city county councilors, Zach Adamson, Democrat, Ben Hunter, Republican. Ben, why did you wait till after the election to have this discussion and not before?
Well, I think that there's never really going to be a good time to have this discussion, and there have been conversations over the last 4 years about this very issue, and it's never really going to be a good time to really have that conversation. We really wanted to make sure that if the electorate wanted to hold us accountable, that there wasn't a knee-jerk reaction, to give them 4 years to decide if we've actually earned that salary. And I think doing it, you have to do it before the year starts. Otherwise, you have to wait till the following year, and then each one gets progressively closer to the election.
Ben, why not wait till March? We could have had this discussion in March or April before there was an election here in 2015.
Well, I think that's a valid question, and obviously we're going to have that debate. I mean, there's two schools of thought on it. I mean, clearly, when you look at council salaries and the mayor for our size city, they are underpaid. And now,
Cincinnati, Milwaukee,
absolutely,
the cities of Gary and Carmel, those mayors make more money than the current mayor does.
They do, and I can only speak from the council side of it. I will tell you that, you know, I will not benefit from this raise as I roll off the council on December 31st. But I look at the ability to attract talent, and that is real. You know, I'm blessed with a great job, and this is a part-time job that is really another full-time job for me. And so when you look at the ability to attract the best elected officials in the council role, we're going to have to look at better compensation, and we're going to have to look at that across the city enterprise, because there are civilian employees outside of IFD and IMPD that desperately need raises as well.
It's also about optics, isn't it? I mean, the mayor's increase would be 32%, the city county council's raise would be 44%. We are not giving those kinds of raises to EMS or city police or anyone else.
Yeah, keeping it in perspective, I think, is important. I mean, the city council only makes $11,000 now, so 30% of that really isn't a very large raise at all. And considering it's not been done, and just as a correction, hasn't been done since 2001, so that's a decade and a half that's been done, and every other agency has had increases since then. The proposal does not even cover the cost of living increases from that 2001. So this is a beyond modest increase.
Ben, should Mayor Ballard veto this proposal should it pass committee? It's going to your committee next week, and you're going to talk about it, but should it pass committee, and should it pass the council in whole, should Mayor Ballard say no way?
No, I don't think the mayor should veto it. I think that if it is the will of the council, there's been public debate over this. There's been a lot of public debate over this. There'll be an opportunity to be heard at the committee level. You know, I would encourage, if it does pass, if the council makes this decision, that it goes forth. Again, it is about righting the ship in terms of compensation for both the mayor's office and the council's office. But again, the larger conversation is really even at the director's level and across the enterprise with various civilian employees.
Can we afford it, Zach? At the end of the day, can we afford this increase?
Well, I think that's always the $64 question, is whether or not we can afford it. The question really boils down to, can we not do it? I mean, can we afford to not do it? If we're going to be able to attract the best and the brightest people to help lead our city, you really have to have a package that is comparable to the amount of effort want and the expectations of the public is that we're working diligently for them. And you really have to be able to make sure that you're paying people what that job is worth.
So will Mayor-elect Hogsett then be able to attract more deputy mayors or other department heads based on a possible increase in salaries?
Well, you know, those positions are often negotiated anyway and not as set by ordinance in terms of the law. So he has that ability now. But in terms of attracting future mayors, future council candidates, it's a real concern, and it's one that we need to rectify. And I would agree with my colleague that, you know, it looks big on paper, but when you're jumping from 11,000 up to about 16, 15,000, 16,000, it's not that large. And to answer your question, the enterprise and the city government, yes, we can't afford it, but the bigger question is we're going to have to look at raises across the enterprise, and that's going to be a more significant cost.
And go ahead.
If I could just chime in too, especially for the city council, when we look at the fact that we're losing 4 members as well, that's an $80,000 increase to our budget. And so the $152,000 increase for the raises is actually offset by $80,000 for the loss of the 4 at-large counselors. So it's actually only going to be about $72,000 divided by 25 counselors. So we're looking at about $2,800 per counselor per year. It's really modest.
And that debate will continue next week when it goes before your committee. We'll keep up to date on this story. Sir, we appreciate it. Zach Adamson, Democrat, Ben Hunter, Republican. We thank you so much for your service, and good holidays to both of you.
You too.
Coming up, changing the rules for classrooms in Indiana and around the country. We'll look at the replacement for No Child Left Behind. You're watching Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We now turn to the battle to change Indiana's civil rights law. A new group forming this week, including some of Indiana's top business names, to create Indiana Competes. Their goal, push for changes to state law to provide protections to the LGBT community.
We're joined this morning by Mike O'Connor with Indiana Competes. Mike, thanks so much for being here. Good to see you. First off, tell me about the goal of Indiana Competes.
Well, sure. I'm with Eli Lilly and Company. Eli Lilly and Company is one of the founding companies behind Indiana Competes, which is a consortium of about 150 Indiana companies from all 92 counties from all across the state, working together to make sure that we have a solution to the sort of the problem that was created last legislative session. We passed what we all called the RFRA fix. We knew that was a temporary fix, sort of a short term to get us through an emergency period of time. So now we're working positively with it's going to start in the Indiana State Senate. It's Senators David Long and Travis Holdman, and getting a piece of legislation that can create that balance, right? We believe strongly that no one should have to fear discrimination against them in the state of Indiana, just as we should make sure we're embracing and supporting freedom of religious expression. We believe there's a solution to be found there, and we believe our vitality as a state economically, and certainly it helps us with regards to recruitment and retention of the type of people we need at Lilly to make sure we remain competitive and make sure we remain competitive as a state. Has the state suffered economically because of all this over the past year? Well, I think so. I think we've suffered sort of an image issue, and that image issue is sort of a lagging indicator. You see it in other places. We have seen it when our folks that conduct interviews and do recruitment from people around the country and around the world talk about, now, Indiana, aren't you guys the place that had the problem with regards to passing a law that allowed people to discriminate against others? And so we've seen it anytime people bring it up like that. Yes, that's an impact. We believe we've seen it with regards to the financial impact of the types of conventions and other visitors we see in central Indiana and Indianapolis. But more importantly, it's an image issue for the state. We're a company that relies upon bringing the best minds from around the world to solve those vexing health problems. And we need them to understand they're coming to a place that is vital, open, and welcoming. Does a compromise work, or do we need a full anti-discrimination law in Indiana? Well, I think what we believe as a company that is a full participant in Indiana Competes, and what we believe at Eli Lilly and Company is that when you say compromise, in today's world, unfortunately, that means somebody's going to have to give something up. We as a company believe that really the thought of and the freedoms surrounding freedom of religious expression, freedom of expression, and freedom from discrimination are inextricably linked, that they work together. And that in many issues just like this, we've found answers in legislation that protect both. We think that is doable in this circumstance. We believe that everyone should be free from discrimination, regardless of any choices with regards to employment, housing, and public accommodation. We also believe it needs to be clear that there is freedom of religious expression. We think there is a ground in the middle where everybody can walk away with what they need. What that looks like, that's what the legislature does every year that they come into session. So we believe we'll be able to hammer something out.
Mike O'Connor with Eli Lilly and Indiana Competes. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Raphael?
Jason, thank you so much. Joining us now is Congressman Todd Rokita. Congressman, the issue in California on the minds of so many. Are we doing enough on the issue of homeland security?
Well, first, Raphael, let me say thoughts and prayers go out for sure. This is a terrible tragedy, and I would say that, no, we're not doing enough. In fact, next week, when I return to Congress, we're going to take up a bill to reform some of our visa requirements. What we're finding is that people who are coming from places in Europe where visas are not required had just before that been in countries that are suspected of statewide terrorism. So we want to cinch that up a little bit. The Obama administration actually agrees with us on this issue, at least initially. So we're hopeful we could do some things like that, common sense things that Hoosiers would think would make sense to shore this up.
Another big issue heading into Congress will be the issue of No Child Left Behind, and you're working on a plan to sort of work that into, reshift that program.
Right. Well, really reform it, gut No Child Left Behind. It doesn't exist anymore as we know it if the bill that we passed is signed by the president. Very proud as the kindergarten through 12th grade education subcommittee chairman in the U.S. House to with my colleagues get this bill negotiated with our Senate colleagues.
And what would be the big thing? What would that bill accomplish?
Well, it would really gut and remove this idea that you have to be caught up to grade level within 1 year. I mean, that was the core of No Child Left Behind, and it just did nothing, as well-intentioned as it may have been, but caused stress to teachers, parents, and students alike. And so what we're saying is that we're not going to mandate that anymore. We still think accountability is a good thing, and that you ought to test at least once a year, but how long you test, the kind of test you use, what subjects in addition to math and reading you test, should be left up to the states and local school boards. And that's the beauty of it. We're going to trust states again more, and local school boards more than we trust nameless, faceless bureaucrats at the Department of Education.
Another major issue is that involving the highway bill, and you're hoping that this bill that you're also talking about will bring back at least $5 billion back to the Hoosier state.
We expect it to. It passed Congress this week again, and it's on its way to the president's desk as well. And it's an increase in funding for Indiana. We don't have to even feel guilty about it. It's fully paid for, not with gimmicks, but with real money. So that is a good thing. We still have a lot of reform to do in the funding area, but for the next 5 years, states like Indiana, road builders, everyone else are going to have the certainty of knowing that the money is there to do the projects that we know need to be done.
Is that $5 billion money that Hoosiers already pay in federal gas tax? So often people think we're getting pork. Is this pork, or is this
no.
Washington that's coming back to us?
A majority of it's from the highway, from the gas taxes we pay, but there is a shortfall, and that's the problem. But we used funding from other sources, not pork or anything like that, but funding from other sources, namely Federal Reserve funds that are in surplus and some other things, to shore up the difference. But long term, Raphael, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. We have to figure out how to pay for our roads but from the users that use them in a better way, because our vehicles are getting more miles to gallon now. We're driving less, and the gas tax just isn't producing enough revenue.
Congressman Todd Rokita, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome anytime to sit on the couch and join us here on this program.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, sir. Now, coming up, our insiders are ready to join us on the couch and to talk about the big issues of the day, including the proposed mayoral pay increase and much more. You're watching Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Already talking on the big couch. Dan Parker, Democrat Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Mary Beth Schneider. How are you, folks? You look fantastic, so let's get right to it. Will the City County Council allow for raises for new council members and old council members and the mayor in 2016?
This is the Let me put it this way. The only thing that smells worse...
Put it some way. Go ahead.
The only thing that smells worse than this idea about these pay raises is Joe Hogshead sneakers from the old commercial.
You practiced that lot.
I've been waiting all week to use that. No, this is a bad idea. I mean, yes, the mayor should make more. Yes, the council should make more. But this is not the way to do it. You don't do it after an election, during a lame duck session. You do it at least, during a budget cycle where you can budget, plan for this sort of thing, and where you can sort of let the public actually have a serious time to vet and have the discussion, or at the very least, not do it for this mayor and council, but the next mayor and council in 2019.
And why not phase in these increases? Because it is quite substantial. The mayor would get 32%. I think the city county council will get 44% in size. Why not phase it in? At least make it more palatable.
If you're going to go for the money, you're just going to go for it all at the beginning. You're not going to phase it in. And I agree with him, though. It's not whether it's deserved. It's not whether, he should be getting 32% more. Other mayors of smaller cities and councils of smaller cities are making more, and they really do a lot of work. But you don't do it after an election on a lame duck council.
Should the mayor veto this? Should it get to the mayor's desk? I'm talking about Mayor Ballard.
Well, I don't know what he'll do because he's walking out the door himself. But this is not Joe Hogshead's idea. It's the council's part of the problem with all of these is always because politicians don't like to raise salaries. They never do. And so when they try to make up for it, they end up being big, and this is what you get. So I think there's a long way to go on this story, and I'm just glad that they didn't just vote it through in this last meeting.
But Joe could show leadership, right, and tell the council this isn't the time or the way. Let's hold committee hearings through next year and then vote on it.
Actually, I would argue this is the council throwing Joe under the bus. Like, these are your fellow Democrats. They're supposed to be looking out for you. They're really looking out for themselves. Joe never, to Joe's credit, he never asked for a raise. He ran on a campaign of being frugal and cutting his office budget. He should do what Bart Peterson did at the very least and say, if you're going to give me the raise, I'll donate that raise to charity.
Let's talk about on the congressional side, U.S. Senator Joe Donnelly deciding to flip-flop on the issue of Planned Parenthood.
I think that's actually a little harsh to say flip-flop here, and I like the word flip-flop. But in this case, I think what he said before was let's pause, let's study, take a look at it. They've done that, and there was nothing to find. And so now he's saying, let's go ahead with the funding, which a lot of women depend on health care for.
And when you smack me down, it's okay.
Usually that's reserved to Abdul.
No, I think Mary Beth is absolutely right. I mean, Joe Donnelly said early on that, let's get to the bottom of what's alleged in these videotapes, find out what's going on, just put the funding on pause for just a second. They found out there was nothing there, and then he's just going back to being consistent. And I mean, I'm a conservative, but I think Planned Parenthood serves an adequate and admirable purpose in providing certain health care to certain types of women. And my Republican friends are really going to have to get over this Planned Parenthood fetish, that these guys have, because as women become more and more of the electorate, mess around with women's reproductive health is not how you win elections.
This is Joe Donnelly being Joe Donnelly. I mean, he's common sense. There was an issue that was raised earlier about Planned Parenthood. He looked into it, had questions, got the answers, and then we move on. He did the same thing with Syrian refugees. There was a lot of issues that were raised. He asked questions to the Secretary of Homeland Defense, and he got the answers. And now, he's on record supporting it. So, this is just Joe Donnelly being Joe Donnelly.
On the issue of refugees, the governor met with the Archbishop of the Catholic Church and asked him to rethink the church's position on allowing Syrian refugees to be resettled in the state. Was that a good thing for the governor to do?
Yeah, probably. Yet I'm not so sure that it's made any difference at all. We have seen no change in his position. We're waiting to see whether the Catholic Church will stick with their moral beliefs and stand up for people fleeing terrorism.
Well, like I said, I don't think the governor has always been believed that people, should live in freedom. And he doesn't have a problem. He didn't say no refugees. He's just saying, hey, basically, let's figure out a way that we can properly vet folks. Because when Homeland Security says there's no way we can guarantee, that even the people that we do believe are vetted, that you can't stop the bad guys from coming in. Remember back, 2009, Bowling Green, Kentucky, we had Iraqi refugees come in. A couple of them were connected to Al-Qaeda. We're going to do something.
What about religious freedom?
But they put that on hold for 6 months, and then everything was fine.
What about religious liberty? Should the church, the Catholic Church, not have a right to pursue what it believes to be its moral calling? We've had this major debate in Indiana about religious freedom. Does the church not have that right to do so?
I believe churches and any religious institution has the right to follow their moral conscience. However, your moral conscience doesn't operate in a vacuum.
Well,
and I'm the Islamic guy too, so I can.
Well, you're flanked by 2 Roman Catholics. So,
story of my life.
You know, I think that Mike Pence should drop his re-election for governor and run for federal office, because these are the only issues he cares about. You know, one issue after another, he's writing letters to Washington talking about issues in Washington, D.C. So stop being our governor and run for the United States Senate, or go back to your old congressional seat.
Vigo County. On that note, Vigo County has chosen the presidential nominee, the winner, for a number of years, and this time they've picked their person. Can we count on Vigo County to pick our next president?
Well, Politico is looking, you know, that county has apparently picked the winner of the presidential election in all but 2 elections. Adlai Stevenson, they went for over Eisenhower was the last one. And for some reason, you see popular support for Donald Trump in that county.
And they've chosen Donald Trump, right?
In the primary.
In the primary.
For the primary.
But our primary is not until May.
You know,
there's
so
a lot of time
10
until our
seconds. Who's going to win? Who's going to win 10 seconds?
Our primary's not till May, but there's no guarantee that Trump's going to be able to make it on the ballot.
Well, I told you a few weeks ago it was going to be Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz is surging.
And now you can join the debate on Twitter right now. Look for all our political insiders and follow our official Twitter account at Indy This Week. And news and updates every day of the week. You're watching Indianapolis This Week. For joining us for Indianapolis This Week, for Jason, Katie, and all of us here at RTV6, have a great weekend, and go Colts.